The story begins with Nori, a girl who has felt different from other children since she was very young. While her classmates seemed to have something special, she couldn't figure out what made her unique. Until one day something very strange happens. When Nori is 7 years old, she is looking out the window of her bedroom and sees a little kitten in the garden. At that moment, her body starts to change. Whiskers grow on her face and she turns into a cat just as her dad walks into the room. And as if that weren't enough, wings suddenly sprout from her back. That's when Nori finally understands that her difference has to do with magic. 6 years later, Nori is now a teenager, and the day she has been waiting for a long time finally arrives. Along with her best friend Reina, she heads to Sage Academy, a very famous school for young people with magical powers. Reina has the ability to control fire and is quite powerful, but her biggest problem is that she doesn't really believe in herself. Luckily, Nori is always there to support her and remind her how good she truly is. The problem is that Nori doesn't have the same ease with her powers. She struggles a lot to control them, and every time she tries to transform into an animal, she ends up mixing several creatures at the same time, making it clear that her magic doesn't work the way it's supposed to. A few weeks later, Nori and Reina meet up with other kids who are also about to enter the academy. They are all waiting for a bus that is supposedly going to take them to the school, but instead, a rather strange man named Bud appears from behind a tree. The man tells them that he will guide them to Sage Academy. After saying goodbye to their parents, the young students head into the forest and follow him along a path. After walking for a while, they reach a portal. Bud is the first to step through, followed by Nori, Reina, and the rest of the group. Once inside the academy, the students quickly realize that their cell phones don't work there. That same day, they meet the headmistress, Linda, who explains that the students will be divided into 5 groups based on the type of magic they have. There are the fuzzies, who can talk to animals, the flickers, who can pull objects toward their hands, the flares, who control fire, the flyers, who can float, and the fluxers, who have the power to transform into animals. Before classes begin, everyone must pass a test to evaluate their abilities. The flares go first, and their challenge is to light a candle that is 2 meters away. Philip does it without any trouble, receives a card, and is told to wait in the courtyard. Next is Elliot's turn, but he fails because instead of fire, he only produces smoke, so the teachers immediately dismiss him. Then Reina steps up and surprises everyone by lighting the candle using only her pinky finger. After that, it's the fuzzies' turn. They must correctly answer the questions asked by a dog in order to pass. Later come the flickers, who have to pull a ceramic vase toward their hands. In this test, Pepper fails because instead of attracting the object, he repels it and throws it against the wall, so he is also eliminated. The flyers must float 1 meter above the ground for 30 seconds. However, when Andres removes a backpack filled with very heavy stones, he starts rising uncontrollably all the way to the ceiling and can't come back down. In addition to being disqualified, he gets stuck up there and has to be helped. Finally, it's the fluxers' turn. They must transform into a cat for 6 seconds and then return to their normal form. When it's Nori's turn, everything goes wrong. In less than 2 seconds, bat wings grow from her back and she completely loses control of her magic. Seeing what's happening, the teachers panic. Nori manages to turn back into a human and, like the other new students, receives an envelope with her results. At the end of the exam, all the students gather in the courtyard to open their cards and find out which group they have been assigned to. At that moment, Reina finds out that she has been accepted into the flares, which is great news for her. But when Nori checks her card, she is in for a shock. She wasn't sent to the fluxers. Instead, she only sees the letters UDM. Confused, she wonders what that means. Shortly after, the headmistress tells all the students to go to the cafeteria to pick up their uniforms. All of them, except Nori. She is told that she must follow a path through the forest to reach her destination. At that moment, the 2 friends part ways, wish each other good luck, and each goes off on her own. When Nori arrives at the UDM headquarters, she is greeted by Bud, who leads her to an underground shelter. Upon entering the classroom, Nori finds other students who also failed their exams. There, she learns the truth. She has been sent to the Misfits Club. In this place, students are not allowed to practice magic, and all the classes are just like those at a regular school. Hearing this, Nori becomes furious and asks why they can't train their powers like the rest of the students at Sage Academy. At that moment, Headmistress Linda appears and explains that the UDM was created for students with upside-down magic. According to her, these students will never learn to use their powers properly, so they must stay at the school until their magic fades away completely. Linda compares magic to a muscle. If it isn't used, it weakens until it disappears. The headmistress also explains that for many years, Sage treated UDM students the same as everyone else, but everything changed in 1939. That year, a boy named Reginald caused a tragedy. Because of his upside-down magic, Reginald became the perfect host for shadow magic, a force that seeks only to create chaos. Teachers and students at Sage Academy joined forces to stop him and narrowly prevented a catastrophe. Fortunately, shadow magic cannot exist without a human host, and according to the headmistress, UDM students are its main targets. That is why they must remain isolated and are forbidden from using magic until their powers disappear. That same day, the other students attend their respective classes. Reina learns that in a few weeks, the annual Founders Day will be celebrated. During the event, 5 first-year students will be showcased, and each professor will choose the 2 best from their category to compete. Then, the winner from each group will give a presentation in front of the founders and the entire academy. After receiving all this information, the new students begin their classes. In the case of the Flares, the teacher gives them their first lesson and challenges Reina to use her power to turn kernels of corn into popcorn. Although she is very nervous, she manages to complete the task excellently, until she hears Philip making fun of her. At that moment, all her insecurities come rushing back, and she ends up completely burning the popcorn. While the teacher scolds her, a second-year student named Chandra watches the scene from outside with a smile on her face. The next morning, Bud gathers the UDM students for an outdoor class and tells them he has a surprise. When he opens the door to a shed, Nori sees several brooms and gets excited, thinking they will finally be able to fly. However, after a hard fall, she realizes they are just ordinary brooms and that they will only be using them to clean the school courtyard. While doing the work, Nori takes the opportunity to spy on the Fluxers classes and notices that Professor Han has given them a new lesson. Unlike the previous exam, where they could turn into any cat, this time they must transform into a specific kitten. As she secretly watches the Fluxers class, Nori discovers that the annual Founders Day is approaching and that one of those students will have the chance to participate. At that moment, Nori sees a huge opportunity. If she can prove her potential, maybe the leaders of the academy will finally listen to her. So she decides to train on her own in an attempt to fix her magic. To do this, Nori makes up an excuse and moves closer to the class, intending to get a good look at the kitten Professor Han is holding. This way, she carefully studies every detail of the animal, thinking that she could copy it in front of the whole school. However, once again, her powers betray her, and she ends up transforming into a very strange creature. Alarmed, Professor Han immediately calls Bud and asks him to keep his students under control, since the headmistress will be furious if she finds out what happened. When lunchtime arrives, all the students gather in the cafeteria. There, Nori tells her fellow UDM classmates that she has drawn every detail of the cat Professor Han had, and that now she just needs to practice to achieve the perfect transformation. From a distance, she sees Reina sitting with her class, and her friend stands up to go greet her, but Ms. Argon scolds her and forces her to return to her seat. Meanwhile, in the Flares class, after making all the corn kernels explode with his magic, Philip is chosen as the best student. The teacher then asks Reina to face him in a challenge. Although Reina manages to complete the task, her popcorn ends up a little burnt, which causes Argon to once again show her disappointment in her. During the break, Reina walks alone through the hallways when Chandra appears and praises her immense power. Before leaving, Chandra tells her that if she ever wants to take her abilities even further, she can help her. Determined to become the best student in her class, Reina stays up late studying in the library. At that moment, as she puts a book away, another one with a black cover falls from the shelf. When she picks it up, she discovers that it is the Shadow Magic Manual. Out of curiosity, she decides to flip through it, but as soon as she opens it, the lights go out, and Reina realizes she has made a serious mistake. Frightened, she puts it back on the shelf and quickly leaves, but she notices that the book has begun to follow her. Meanwhile, Nori is at the dormitory with her fellow Misfits, who help her measure how long she can maintain the form of a feline. Despite training over and over again, she can't get past 3 seconds before her body starts turning into several animals at the same time. The next day, Reina sees Nori through the window, laughing with her new friends, and feels sad, thinking that maybe Nori doesn't miss her anymore. Suddenly, the Shadow Magic Manual appears on her bed. The pages begin to flip on their own until they stop at a chapter that explains how to use powers without holding back. When Reina decides to read it, a black cloud forms around her and begins to invade her body. Hours later, all the first-year students gather to watch the competition between the top 2 students from each class. The Flares are the first to compete. Philip is sure he will win easily, but to his surprise, Reina manages to make all the corn kernels explode in record time. When the teacher tastes the popcorn, Professor Argon feels proud, and Reina is chosen to represent her class at the annual Founders' Day. At that very moment, Nori appears and announces that she has been training to fix her magic and asks for a second chance. In front of everyone, she manages to transform into a striped cat while Professor Han keeps time. However, when she reaches 4 seconds, wings grow from her back again, and she completely loses control. Terrified, Nori starts transforming into all kinds of creatures. Reina tries to help her friend calm down, but now that her magic is intensified, she can't control it either and almost ends up turning Nori into a barbecue. Realizing what's happening, Reina runs off to apologize, while Bud helps Nori back to her feet. At that moment, the headmistress appears, harshly scolds Bud, and warns him that if he doesn't keep his students under control, he could lose his job. When the group returns to the UDM headquarters, everyone is completely discouraged. After what happened, they lose hope that they will ever be able to learn how to use their magic. Bud, who went through a similar situation years ago, feels terrible for them and decides to tell them something important. Later, when everyone gathers in the forest, Bud confesses that he has always hated his job. He is tired of seeing the UDM students' dreams being crushed over and over again, so he makes a decision. He is going to help them accept their abilities as they are and bring out the best in them. At that moment, Bud starts to sing, and by using the lyrics of his songs, he is able to communicate with the animals of the forest. That is how they discover that their teacher actually belongs to the Fuzzies category. This calms the students, because they realize they are not alone. Unlike others who can talk to animals, Bud can only communicate with them through music. He also explains that he was never trained by Sage Academy, yet his magic never disappeared. In order not to lose it, he always practiced in secret. Finally, he promises that starting the next day, he will teach them to do the same. As they head back to the cabin, Nori remembers what happened earlier and comes to a conclusion. There is something strange about Reina's magic. Worried, she decides to go look for her to understand what is going on. Meanwhile, Reina enters her room and finds Chandra holding the Shadow Magic Manual. Chandra realizes that Reina has strengthened her powers thanks to the book. Furious about the danger this represents, Nori demands that Chandra leave and take the manual with her. Chandra leaves, but the book returns to Reina's room on its own. Full of anger, Reina opens the door just as Nori appears, and the two of them hug. However, in order to keep her friend from discovering anything about the Shadow Manual, Reina is forced to push her away, even though she doesn't want to. The next morning, Bud begins training with his group. First, he helps Andres control the height at which he floats. After tying a hose around his body, Andres removes his backpack and manages to rise all the way to the treetops, although he still can't come down on his own. Throughout the training, the students begin to accept their powers as they are, without trying to copy or compare them to others. Over time, the group grows closer and gradually learns to control their magic. Elliot discovers how to shape his smoke. Pepper learns to throw objects as far as she wants, and Nori stops trying to turn into just one animal. Instead, she embraces her incredible ability to merge different creatures within her body. While Nori and the others are having fun training, Reina runs into Chandra again, who insists on talking to her. Reina tells her to leave her alone, but Chandra reveals that after using the book, the two of them are now connected. During the argument, the other students ask who she is talking to, and that is when Reina realizes that only she can see Chandra. Terrified, Reina runs back to her room, but Chandra continues to haunt her. Chandra tells Reina that she has no idea of the true extent of her powers and that her magic is far stronger than anyone else's. Tempted by the idea of leaving all her insecurities behind and reaching her true potential, Reina finally gives in and fully surrenders to shadow magic. When Nori finally finds her, she realizes that her friend has been possessed. She also discovers that the UDM students are not the only targets of this evil spirit. The creature reveals that the entire school will be destroyed very soon and orders Nori to run if she doesn't want to become the first victim. Nori immediately returns to the camp and tells Bud everything she has discovered. At that moment, her UDM classmates want to take action and reveal the truth to the headmistress, but Bud stops them. He is certain that Linda would never believe such a story and asks them to wait until the next day. According to Bud, the spirit plans to strike during the Founders' Day ceremony. The next morning, the big event arrives. All the students and teachers gather in the garden, and Headmistress Linda invites Reina onto the stage to give her presentation. At first, the girl remains seated and only gives a small demonstration of her enormous power. Then she stands up and announces that she has prepared something far more impressive for such a special day. Suddenly, a gigantic fireball appears in her hands, and her shadow begins to spread across the entire garden. At that moment, a terrifying voice breaks out and announces that after so many years, it has finally returned. Upon hearing this, the teachers realize that it is the same spirit that possessed Reginald decades earlier. That is when they discover that shadow magic does not only target UDM students. Trying to stop the monster, Argon and her students join forces to launch a massive fireball, but the demon takes no damage. Then, on the headmistress's orders, the fuzzies summon birds of prey to attack, but the animals are frightened by the creature and immediately flee. After that, the Fluxers transform to face it, but their animal forms turn out to be completely harmless. When everything seems lost and there are no options left, the UDM students step into action. Pepper manages to drive the creature back, while Elliot creates a huge smoke screen so Linda can locate it. Shortly after, Andres taunts the monster and distracts it, giving Nori the chance to knock it down. With the demon on the ground, Linda orders everyone to combine their powers to destroy it. However, Nori stops anyone from getting closer. She knows the truth. The monster is actually her best friend. Determined to save her, Nori risks her own life to help Reina regain control. Just as Nori is about to be attacked, a fireball bursts from inside the creature and manages to destroy it. Seeing that Reina is finally free from shadow magic, Nori feels enormous relief and hugs her. Thanks to the bravery of the UDM students, Sage Academy is saved, and as a result, many important changes take place. The UDM program is cancelled, and these students can now study alongside the others and learn to control their unique magic. Bud is also recognized for his efforts and is promoted to an official Fuzzies professor. And unlike before, the cafeteria tables are no longer separated by categories. Now, all the students can sit together, no matter what type of magic they have.